episode 140, IRONMAN Mont Tremblant with Jesse Vondracek. Welcome to the pursuit of the perfect race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Triathlete Jesse Vondracek about his race experience with IRONMAN Mont Tremblant, where he entered 9 hours, 10 minutes, 10 seconds. He's been doing triathlons now for 11 years, and this is his 9th season as a professional triathlete. Jesse is the owner and head coach of Top Step Training. This race took place on August 19th, 2018, with a 2-kilometer race time being 61 and rising to 81. And the swim was at 8 hour and 15-minute increments due to a fall on the water. Welcome back to the show, Jesse. I'm looking forward to hearing about your race experience and IRONMAN Mont Tremblant.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back.
You're welcome. So, a lot has happened in your life since IRONMAN Texas. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been pretty busy. It's IRONMAN Texas was kind of the end of my beginning of my season because I took a little downtime there, and my wife and I had had a child, and so on race day she was about 9 weeks old for IRONMAN Mont Tremblant.
Wow. So you haven't been getting much sleep, and you can be back for the first time. How's that?
Yeah, it's been super exciting, and I really miss sleeping. I really feel like I didn't hold it as high a value as I should have before because now that I don't have it, I really miss it. But being a father is awesome.
Wow. So how was your training going into this race?
Well, it was definitely a bit different, given that fact that, sleeping a little bit less and wanted to be home a little more and spend time with my daughter. So the training regimen definitely changed a bit. Definitely less volume and just a few kind of shorter, harder workouts and then trying to get a few naps in during the week.
Nice. I know that in IRONMAN Texas, you had some 35, 40-hour weeks of training, and that doesn't seem like it was the case coming up on your
No, I got over 20 a couple of times, but maybe 25 hours for the 2 weeks kind of before I started tapering down, something like that.
Wow. So going into this race, what was your longest workout?
I probably swam about 5K, something close to that, and I did a 5.5 hour ride, and that was probably my longest ride. And then I did a 20-mile run.
Okay. Yeah, this 20-mile run, was that all at once? Was it split out? Did you have intervals in there? Was it like?
I warmed up for about the first 10 minutes and then tried to settle into what I would consider a race effort, which is usually about 20 to 35 seconds faster than race pace. Just, given that I'm a little more fresh for the run if I'm doing it on a Sunday morning. And then I tried to hold that for about the middle, hour and 45 minutes and then about a 5-minute cool down.
Nice. So are you doing breaks then, it sounds like?
I always do about 1 brick a week, and then occasionally I'll do 2, but that's about it.
Okay. Now, did you do a lot of sections where it was high intensity and high volume, or what was this like for you?
I'd say that since my overall volume was pretty low and I didn't have any what I would consider huge rides or runs, that I did some high intensity, but it wasn't it wasn't really high volume. I did do a few I did one pretty good track session that was a little bit longer, and then one longer ride that was kind of broken up with a bunch of intervals. But overall, it was just kind of some consistent training with some shorter, harder workouts, and then a few times of stretching it out to make sure I was ready for the Ironman distance.
Nice. So let's talk a little bit about your training. How do you mitigate the risk of injury as your volume goes up and intensity goes up?
Well, I mean, I've been doing this for a while now, and I think I finally have a decent grasp of my body. So I just try to listen to it and And I know, like, I kind of know the markers of when I'm starting to kind of cross that line. So when things start to flare up, I make sure I'm, taking a little downtime if I need to, or, getting them taken care of as soon as possible. So yeah, just trying to be as in tune as I can and being confident enough to back off if I need to.
Nice. So maybe you're training about 20 hours a week, and you're doing some heavier training loads with that, and you're bringing the intensity on and off the intervals, and while you're training with all those track sessions and things. Are there any days where you just didn't want to train?
Sure. And I'd say, especially given my lack of sleep, that's been the biggest thing that's makes me feel like I don't want to train. I feel like it takes away like my activation energy, the will to get out the door. But having a child and having more of like a strict time schedule, this training block was a little more of like, well, if I don't go now, then I'm never going to be able to go. So there were a few times when I got out the door for a workout and just didn't have it, but I would still try and if I couldn't do the intensities that I want to do, then I'd back it off and go for an easy ride or something, or an easy run. Because this training cycle, like I said, I couldn't go home and take a nap and try the workout again later or try the workout again tomorrow. Just wasn't an option. So there are a few times where I was just tired and had to bag the workout and just, make it kind of a recovery spinner run. And usually that doesn't happen, but I'd say the lack of sleep kind of, led into that this time. It's definitely a much more complex issue than I imagined. I mean, my wife's also active, so kind of trying to balance who's going to work out when, and then who's taking care of the baby, and who's getting up in the middle of the night for feedings, and then above and beyond that, like we both want to spend time with her and together at times, so trying to fit all those things in. And again, with sleep has been an interesting puzzle that is a work in progress, and I imagine it will stay that way for the next 18 years. Thanks.
Now, I know that you lived in Arizona and those race was in Canada. How did you get up to the race venue, and did you get your bike up there a certain way?
So we were fortunate enough to be able to spend about 7 weeks in upstate New York at my mother-in-law's house this summer, which was allowed us to get out of the Tucson heat, which was great, and had a little help with the baby. And my parents also live in upstate New York, so our daughter got to log some grandparent time, which makes everyone happy. But that also meant that Mont Tremblant was drivable. It was like a 7-hour drive or something from where we were in New York. Yeah. I mean, it took us about 9 because we had to stop quite a few times to, feed and hang out with the baby, but not too bad. Yeah. The 3 of us went, and then my parents met us up there. So we had one set of grandparents with us.
Nice.
We just got like a condo. There's kind of like the ski village area where the race takes place, and then the actual town. So we got a condo down in the town. That was given that I kind of decided on this race a little bit later. That was kind of the only option we had left at that point.
Okay. Now, whenever you got to the check-in process and the pro meeting, how does that go?
So the pro meeting and like the kind of the race, the way they kind of take care of the pros there is another level. And hopefully VT touched on that a little bit too, because she's pretty animated in everything she says. But I was very impressed. I mean, the race director came and gave us a speech at the pro meeting, and he was like so sincere, and he was really wanting to make sure that we all had a great race experience. And I mean, before the race, they gave us like a bottle of champagne and cookies with our name on it, and just all these like in a couple of their little gifts just to make sure we were like comfortable. And so the race organization and like the pro meeting was it was awesome. It was kind of like what I remember about Ironman racing when Ironman first started. Everyone just being super grateful and really happy to be there.
Wow. that's like something that I haven't even heard yet. So what else like the days where they going above and beyond that?
I mean, like I said, like bottle of champagne before the race started. I was like, we don't even need to do the race now. We all got our celebrations. Yeah. And, you know, just like a couple of water bottles and like a Mont Tremblant towel and just kind of the sincerity of the race director in really wanting us to love his race is like I said, it's like when I first started doing Ironman, that seemed like how all the races were. And then it seems like Ironman has kind of gotten away from that a little bit. But this race, I don't know if it's just because it's in Canada or just because that race director is really passionate, but he really just, you know, it was like another level of being taken care of and feeling, like respected, and like they really wanted to have a high quality pro field there, and they wanted us to be, as well taken care of as we could be.
Wow. That's awesome. I mean, that's one thing that I've noticed through this series is the race director really cares about the actual race he's putting on. And I think 2 years ago at Downport there, and people saw him actually on the bike course telling him to slow down because he thought people were not being harm's way because they were going too fast downhill. Like, and this is something that isn't really heard of whenever race directors take the initiative to make sure the athletes are safe.
Yeah, No, sorry, go ahead.
Just continue on here. So, as far as your chicken process always was good now, how's the food up there? Did you have to go out and eat a certain amount of times, or did you cook food? How was it something?
So given that we were in kind of the town, not the village, we had like a grocery store and some restaurants nearby. So we went out a couple of times, and then we basically just bought some food at the grocery store and cooked at home. Unfortunately, that meant we missed the athlete banquet, which from what I heard was amazing. And I saw pictures of the fireworks there. And again, it just looked like another place where the race kind of went above and beyond.
So what kind of food are you kind of have the day before the race?
I try and eat a fair amount of carbohydrate and you know, kind of limit the fiber. And then I still make sure I get in a good amount of protein and fat in there. And for me, it's like I try to eat kind of a bigger breakfast, and then basically from there eat kind of a ton of snacks throughout the day. You know, I'll have like a small lunch and a small dinner, but then I'll have kind of a few little meals in between all of those.
Now, being that you can't really get that much sleep because of the little one, how are you doing with your sleep manipulation going to this race?
You know, I just tried to taper a little bit more and kind of take, you know, I'm kind of of the mindset that stress is stress. And so like, you know, having a child and staying at my mother-in-law's house, like, you know, all these things are kind of little extra stressors, and not sleeping as much. So, I backed off my training a little bit earlier than I have in the past. And then tried to kind of fill in some of that training time with naps or resting, even just like finding a quiet place and stretching, some things like that I wasn't able to do as much during the build-up. And, you know, you can't really like make up for 2 months of lack of sleep in a few days, but I, you know, just tried to do the best I could. And, you know, try to go to bed early, and, you know, even if I wasn't asleep the whole time, just really try to stay in bed, for as long as I could each night, you know, given those constraints.
Okay. Now, as far as going up the time before the race, what time are you trying to get in bed?
I think I got in bed at 8 o'clock the night before the race.
Okay. What time was your wake-up call?
I got up at 3. Sorry, I got up at, yeah, so sorry. I went to bed at 7:30 and woke up at 3:30. I got in bed at 7:30. Actually, I slept really well for the night before the race, which again to me is an indicator of kind of lack of sleep and the fact that I was still pretty tired. Always, yeah. For sure, yeah. Even at we've got a local sprint in Tucson. You know, even when I'm getting ready for the Oro Valley Tri there, I always get race day nerves.
Wow. So, as far as the race day preparation, what does that look like before the race for
Well, I try and eat like 3 hours before the start of the race. So right when I get up, I'll have a cup of coffee and I'll eat breakfast. And I'll try and eat like a pretty good meal. And like, so that morning I had like two peanut butter and honey sandwiches and like a banana and a cup of coffee kind of right when I got up. And then I kind of have like a water with electrolyte beverage that I'm sipping on kind of from then on, but I don't really try and eat much after that one meal 3 hours before. I brought it the day before, and when I got there, I think there was one other bike there in the pro rack. But again, staying kind of where we were and having to worry about like, the little one and all these other things, it was just easier for me to take it the day before and have one less thing to worry about race morning.
As far as laying out your bags for your T1 and T2 special needs, where are you putting in all these bags?
So in T1, I just have my helmet and my sunglasses. I've like my bike computer on the bike and shoes on the bike so that, I can just run in, grab the helmet, put on the sunglasses, make sure I buckle the helmet before I get to my bike, and then I'm good to go. In T2, I have socks, shoes, race belt, and then I'll throw in a little bit of nutrition in there, like a couple of gels or chews to start out the race with. In special needs, I put 2 bottles for the bike, and then I put in a bottle and like a bar for the run. On the bike, I put in 1 bottle of like F2C drink mix, and then another bottle of F2C mixed with a little bit of Red Bull. On the run, I do a bottle of watered down Coke, and then just a bar.
Okay. Now, I remember the Red Bull from IRONMAN Texas, where you were taking that right before the race. Are you doing the same thing here?
I had like a half a Red Bull before the start of the swim. Well, before what I thought was the start of the swim. Yeah.
Okay. Now, being that it was 20 and 15-minute increments, after you transition, do you still have like your warm-up gear on, or are you boosting your race? What does this look like?
So I was, they did have a morning clothes drop very near the swim start, which was great of them. But I was fortunate enough to have my father with me. While my mother was helping my wife with the child. So he was with me so that if I could just give him like my sweatshirt and stuff, right before the race start. So yeah, I was lucky to have that help.
Nice. So after you play the first 15 minutes, the second 15 minutes, how's your anxiety level? Are you trying to stay focused? Or are you trying to make sure you get some more nutrition in, some more water? What does this look like for you?
So they were also nice enough to somehow scramble and find like cases of water to hand out because I didn't have anything left with me. So I had a water bottle I was sipping on, and I was just trying to I found a place to sit down. So I was just trying to sit down and stay relaxed. Like I'd already done a warm up jog and I'd already done like some stretching and some dynamic movements, and my body felt pretty good. So I was just trying to not tense up and stay off my feet as much as possible. But the problem with that was like kind of 5 minutes before I was trying to like get up and then get moving again. And then they kind of delay it again. And then I try and sit down and relax again. So it was a bit of a yo-yo process for that hour. Which, I mean, I know they were doing the best they can to give us information as soon as they could. But just given that we were waiting for fog and you never really know how long it's going to take, it just kind of put everyone in that position.
Right. Because the water was warmer than the air temperature. It's creating the steam, basically. And they were doing the best they could. Now, the water, I think that bringing the water is something unique too, because most races wouldn't even bother with that, right? You should have that on your own.
Right.
Races,
and they handed out space blankets because so the water temperature was such that it was between the 2 wetsuit cutoffs. So the amateur or age group racers were all standing around in wetsuits, which is pretty warm. And then we were all standing around in just our swim skins, which is not very warm. So they found like 50 space blankets to give to all the pros. Which even though I had a sweatshirt, I took a space blanket because once you're standing out in the cold for a while, it just kind of, permeates everything. And that helps keep me warm for that hour before the start.
So, like you say that this is the last flag, and then you get ready to get in the water. How was your mindset going into this race? Did you have a certain way that you wanted to perform here for each discipline or overall goal? What's this like?
Well, I guess the first thing I try to do is kind of clear my mind to the fact that we sat there for an hour, because that's, that unfortunately does kind of change everything. Like, your nutrition plan is such that, I ate 3 hours ahead of time for a reason, and now it's 4 hours. And so all these little things kind of creeping in your mind. So first thing I try to do is just say, okay, well, gun's starting now. Can't do anything about that. So I'm going to focus on what's happening now and not worry about any of that other stuff. And then as far as goals go, this swim was kind of, is a swim that I can usually do a little bit better in because it's non-wetsuit, and it's fresh water. So I was excited about that. So I was hoping I could stay in a good pack for the swim and come out in a good position. And then the bike is a little bit challenging, and I haven't been riding as much as I was riding in the past. So I really wanted to focus on just riding my own race and riding my own power, and trusting the fact that I feel like I've been running fairly well. So as long as I'm, at least somewhat close on the start of the run, that I could run my way into a good position. And I was trying to be in the top 8, which is the paid positions of this race.
Okay. So the bike goes well for you. How does this one go for you?
So I didn't look at the line of the buoys, and I just assumed it kind of went straight out from shore. Because on the map, it kind of looks like a U, but it is a U. It's just kind of slightly tilted to the right, like if you're kind of looking out of the lake. So I would say for anyone doing this race, take a look at the map and understand that it is a U, but it's kind of like slightly slanted. So the gun went off, and I started swimming straight, and I kind of look over, and all of a sudden I'm on the far left, and everyone's swimming to the right of me, and that was a bit of a mistake. And then I kind of had to work my way over to the right, and kind of took me a few buoys to understand the actual direction in which I was supposed to be swimming. But once I finally settled in, I was able to catch onto a good group, and I was able to swim with Lionel Sanders and a couple other guys. I just happened to be swimming and breathing the same side as him, so I could see his face a lot during the swim. So I recognized him. There's always you always get bumped around a little bit, but I always find that in general, most people are trying to swim as fast as they can. And so if they hit you, it's not on purpose. And, I've had a few guys hit my feet. I hit a few guys' feet, kind of rubbed shoulders a little bit, but, nothing crazy.
Okay. Now, I know you've been in the sport for quite some time, and something that has come up in conversations that I've been having with athletes is that you feel, as a subject matter expert in doing this, being so many years in the sport, that at some point the efficiency in the swim, you can literally swim as fast as you can, and it doesn't wear you out as much because you're so efficient. But yet, at some point, that kind of falls off because you're wearing yourself out swimming. So you can literally swim all without effort, and it's not wearing you out as much because you're so efficient.
So I guess I would disagree. If I swim flat out, I'm gonna be exhausted. But I'd say if I'm sprinting versus when I'm swimming race pace, as I've gotten more efficient, the gap there is a lot smaller. So let's say if I'm sprinting at 50 yards, I can go 28. And then if I'm swimming at race effort, I'm going 30 or 29 high or something. So the difference can get smaller, but there is that difference there between sprinting all out effort, and then I guess what I would call more of a race pace where, and for me, the biggest thing is I kick less. If I'm sprinting, my legs going crazy, my turnover increases, and my arms are spinning a little bit faster. Whereas in a race, I'm trying to have a longer stroke, and I'm backing off that kick a little bit. But yeah, the speed difference there is not super high, but the physiological cost is extremely high.
That makes sense. smoother and longer than water.
Correct.
Gotcha. So, when you get ready to get out of the water, did you have an idea of where you wanted to race?
Well, I knew I was not exactly where I wanted to be because Lauren Brandon, who won the women's swim, came around me a lot earlier than I really wanted her to. I thought we were kind of closer to the end, and I saw the female lead paddleboard coming by me, so I knew she was going to be coming by soon. So I was like, oh, like we're pretty close. I bet I can jump over and draft off her the rest of the swim. And I saw her swimming by and got on her feet and lasted about 100 yards. And there I was sprinting to try and stay on her feet, and I totally exploded. Had to back off and swim easy for a few minutes. And then lo and behold, the group I was with started hitting my feet again, and I ended up in the same spot. So that was a nice little waste of energy right there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I knew that I was with Lionel, and I knew there was a few guys off the front. I knew there was some fast swimmers there. But I figured that if I could stay with the group Lionel was in, that would put me in a pretty good spot starting the bike. So I didn't know exactly where I was, but I was pretty happy with being where I was.
Okay. When you get to T1, you have to go up some stairs here, run down or over a little bridge here to get the camp. How was this for you?
Yeah, I mean, they told us a lot about the run, and they told us it was a little bit longer, and so I was expecting it, but I mean, it was all carpeted, and it was extremely well marked, so it was definitely longer, but you know, it was fine.
Okay. So how does T1 go for you?
Yeah, it went well. I mean, no, I kind of switched to road cycling shoes instead of tri shoes. I feel like my foot feels better in them, and I feel like I can produce a little bit more power. I'm sure a ton of that is placebo, but that's half the battle, so I'm going to go with it. But that does mean that my T1 is a little bit slower, so I struggled getting my shoes on once I got on the bike. But you know, besides that, it was an uneventful transition, which is how I like them.
So you get on the bike. How the first few miles go for you?
Yeah, I felt great at the beginning of the ride. You know, Lionel passed me about 10 seconds in, and so I was kind of able to keep him in sight for a while, which is always a good feeling. You know, like I said, I was trying to ride my own race, so I definitely just was not going to try and stay with him. But having him there as a mark off in the distance is like I said, it's a good feeling to see.
Wow. Now, did you be a number of watts you want to put or numbers, how you want to see your miles per hour, cadence, or RPE? What were you going off of?
I was keeping an eye on power and heart rate. And then I don't keep an eye on cadence, but I've got a pretty good feel for where my cadence is at. So I like to keep it like fairly high, you know, around 90. And, I could definitely just feel when it starts to slip, and then I just make sure I'm kind of getting it back up. Yeah, I was trying to ride about, like 240 to 245 for watts.
Okay. Now, is this a certain percentage of your FTP?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it is a percentage of my FTP, but I'm not exactly sure what percentage it is. I just know, that, from racing and training that's about what I thought I could hold for the ride.
Okay. Being that there's going to be a lot of variability here with mountains that come along, with you don't pass, I won't say you can't pass people alone, and overall the downhills as well. How do you want to practice?
You know, I just wanted to so there was a hilly part kind of at the end of each lap.
Right.
And so I wanted to make sure I was riding the first part of the lap as smooth and steady as possible. And, you know, I was looking at normalized power. So even riding, a little bit lower normalized power for the flatter sections. Cause I, you know, just kind of know that it's going to go up once you start climbing. So, you know, if I'm descending, definitely the power's dropping a little bit, flats, keeping it right around the same. And then when I'm climbing, you know, it'll go up a little bit. So hopefully it'll kind of average out to where I want it to.
Okay. Now, with this course, how was it going around here?
There was a couple sections that were a little bit rough, but the main stretch was on this really nice road. So I'd say the pavement quality overall was great.
Wow. Now, you're using the is almost 100, right?
Mm-hmm.
You feel like this was good quality or a good design for
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I said, I think the road quality was mostly good. So for me, there's no reason not to run kind of close to that 100 range.
Okay. Now, with this race itself, did you use any shaving cream or anything like that to stay comfortable on the bike?
Yeah. I always put on Zelios makes this chamois cream that I love, and I always put that on in the morning. And I just put it on in my hotel room before the race, and I'd say I put a little more on then than I would just going out for a ride, but I feel like it does a great job just kind of staying on there through the swim and through most of the bike.
Okay. And you're still running the Con bike, and is there any change in your equipment since the time that you did IRONMAN Texas?
Nope, everything's exactly the same. Yeah, I have my diamond, and I load up the lunchbox in there. Got the storage, the hidden flat kit in there, and I've got DSD wheels that have been on there for a while. So same equipment.
Nice. Now, whenever you start getting towards the later portions of the bike ride, let's say 60, 70, 80, where are you at mentally?
So unfortunately, right around mile 70, my chain dropped, and I couldn't get it out of the frame. It's kind of lodged in there between my small chain ring and the frame. And luckily, there was a tech support van at the bottom of this hill that I was kind of like cresting. And so I just rolled down the hill to this tech support van, and they helped me kind of pull my chain out. I was maybe on the side of the road for like 4 minutes, which feels like eternity there. Watching some guys ride by me. That kind of like put me in kind of a bad headspace for like the last 30 miles, which has some of that climbing again. And it took me a little while to kind of mentally regroup and just make sure I was ready for the run. So yeah, the end of the bike was a little bit of a rough patch for me there.
Okay, so mentally, how did you know how to deal with this negative space?
Since I've raced a few times, so it's not the first time something's gone wrong. So I just, I just took some time, and I said, okay, I'm going to take whatever it is, 15 minutes. I'm going to have a pity party for myself, and I'm going to try and get over it, and then start thinking about what I can control. And that's the rest of the race. That's not what's already happened.
Cool. So, with this negative space on a bike ride, it seems like you just know to give yourself time to have your experience with it, and go, okay, well, that's that. Now I need to start growing and getting past this and give yourself a little bit of grace and understanding of, okay, that happened, but I have to move on now and still have my race because there's still conflict. Still matter about your own race course.
Yeah, and after that, I didn't look at my power. I didn't look at my bike computer. I just rode what I could ride, kind of based on where my head and body was at that point, and just knew that I'm not going to bleed that much time the last 30 miles. I might ride a few minutes slower because of it, but I just needed to get myself to the run and try and get there as fast as I can, kind of within reason, and not stress about the details at that point.
Right. Now, with your body itself, did you experience any cramping, GI issues, or anything like that?
So I was actually starting to get kind of like bloated, and that's kind of a new thing for me. I never feel great at the end of an Ironman, but my stomach felt kind of especially bad, and I wasn't sure why. I feel like, I changed up what I ate on the bike a little bit. I included like a little bit more solid food, and I thought that was kind of missing in my last race. Like I didn't feel very satiated getting onto the run last race. I thought that might help. But I think that either I went overboard or it was just like not exactly sure what happened there. But I'm working on that right now because I think that really led to what happened the rest of my race.
Right. Now, as far as safety or back pain or anything like that, being that you're being in the aero for so long, did you have any of that stuff?
A little bit of lower back pain, and I think that's due to having a baby and carrying around a baby a lot recently. Not so much with the aero position. I'm pretty dialed into my fit and felt pretty good there. but it was just kind of some mild back pain, nothing out of this world. And yeah, I was chafe free on the swim bike and run. I was racing for the first time in my new own way kit, and it's always a little bit nerve wracking racing in a kit for the first time. Because you can wear it in training a little bit, but you never really know what's going to happen once you're out there for 6-7 hours. But yeah, felt great all day.
Nice. So as far as the last 10 to 12 miles on the bike, once we pass that 100-mile mark, how's your headspace for these miles?
Those were the really hilly miles kind of at the end, and I was just trying to get through it. Like, everyone kind of says, like, you really need to save something for the last 10 miles on this course because there are some fairly steep climbs in there. And, even though I've done this, I don't know how many times, like 20, 21 times, I still sometimes don't pace 100% correctly. And, being a little bit tired and kind of not being in the best mental space, it kind of made the last 10 miles hard there. And I just need to focus on kind of getting up and over the hills and then getting up to speed as fast as I can for those downhills. And I will say those hills at the end are real, and don't underestimate them. Make sure you're riding smart all day. I also think part of my bloating may have led to why I was already starting to not feel great towards the end of the bike.
Wow. As far as the bike ride goes, what's something you would tell someone to be aware of that hasn't done this course before?
I would say just that like it's really easy to attack those hills the first time through. And it's really easy to ride too hard. There's a really nice false flat section on this course. And for me, that's like if I'm in training, that's perfect because I can really put out power on a false flat. Like I'm still going fast and I feel pretty good. I can stay in the bars. And I would just be really careful of that, to not ride too hard and just really, as you're climbing, you're riding in a slightly lower cadence. So your force per pedal stroke goes up quite a bit. And you just have to have like some muscular endurance left for the end of that bike ride. So, just really, really plan accordingly for that.
Now, whenever you actually get to T2, you're glad to hand your bike off to somebody so that they can take it back for you. And you are in and out of T2 pretty quick. You're in and out in 2 minutes. You're flying through there. Is this the excitement and hustle of you wanting to still get on the run and do your best, or are you just trying to go as fast as you can, just that way you can not be on the bike and always get off with that?
Well, it's a race, so you want to do it as fast as possible, right? And there's no reason to bleed time in T2. I just try and be smooth and efficient throughout transition, and I leave my shoes on the bike. So then just kind of barefoot running into T2 and just try and stay controlled, but get in and out of there as fast as I can.
Okay. Now, as far as the run goes, how does your first 2 miles of the run go? Do you have a strategy of how you want to ease into this, or do you want to go gas on the gas the whole way? What does this look like?
So yeah, I just kind of wanted to be steady the whole time. Like I kind of listen to my body, and if I'm a little bit like stiff getting off the bike, then I'll give myself a few minutes before I start looking at my watch. But this bike, getting T2, my legs felt pretty good. So once my watch kind of loaded up, because I put on my watch kind of in T2 once I start running. Once that was ready with satellites and everything, I just hit start and tried to keep it steady.
Okay. So this is a 2-week course on the run. How was everything going? Did you have a certain place that you would want to see your spectators or your posters?
Well, I just I knew they were going to be around transition somewhere, just because that was easiest for them. I saw them as I was starting the run, and they kind of told me where I was at, and reminded me to be patient. And it was good to see them, especially the little one out there.
Nice. So you get to the first 5K years and moving up past that, and then you start getting to the actual trail up there. Taking it like a trail that's wooded a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a paved like bike path through the woods there.
Okay, and that's the lake there going out. How was this trail for you?
I mean, that was the great part of the run. Before that, it's kind of rolling hills through town, and then you get out there and it's pretty flat bike path. And it's super pretty out there, trees, and then every once in a while you have like groups of spectators and aid stations, and it was great out there.
So how was the aid stations? Were they started well? Were they missing anything that you might want?
No, the aid stations were great. And I even I asked for Coke at one of the aid stations, and they kind of missed me with a Coke, and they sent somebody on a bike riding after me to give me a cup of Coke. So they were dedicated.
Wow, that's awesome. So,
yeah.
They're getting like first class treatment.
Yeah, totally.
Wow. So when I asked you this at IRONMAN Texas, I remember this response vividly because this was by far the funniest reply I've had so far. But what was the funniest thing that you saw on the run course at this race? Because I remember when you talked about IRONMAN Texas, that was awesome. I don't know what you can happen here.
Man, this race was a little more tame. I didn't see much out there, above and beyond the norm. I did see, Cody Beals kind of took the race by storm off the front all day. And then I did see Lionel, and what amazed me was the amount of people and vehicles surrounding Lionel the entire race. That was kind of amazing. It wasn't super funny, but it was kind of amazing to see. He had like a motorcycle, three bicyclists, and kind of the wave of noise that came by everywhere he went, even though he was like whatever he was, 6 minutes down on Cody.
Wow. Now, whenever you start getting towards the middle section of the run miles, 13, 14, 15, 16, where's your head at?
So I guess, this race, I was pretty confident in my run. I had a few pretty good sessions going into this race. And, since I didn't have as much time total to train, I kind of bumped up my run mileage, because that's easier, than trying to bump up your bike mileage. I was pretty run confident, and, I got about 10K in, and like I said, that bloated feeling I had on the bike just kind of got worse and worse. And, in talking to some of my advisors after the race, it just seems like I wasn't really absorbing calories. And that, kind of sent me into damage control mode, basically 6 miles into the run, where I was just trying to evaluate, every time I kind of got to the next mile marker and say, okay, well, like, what can I do to make this better at this point? And sometimes that's nothing. Sometimes I was just focusing on run form. And then, I went to the Coke pretty early because sometimes that'll, digest a little bit faster than other things. And I was really 6 miles on. It was just kind of trying to evaluate and see what I could do to kind of get back in the race. Cause at that point, I try and run by pace. I also keep an eye on my heart rate, especially with when I don't know the terrain super well. And I didn't really know when I was going up or down as far as false flats and stuff on this run course. So I have a target heart rate, try and keep my running in the low 150s. I kind of know I can do that for a long time. And, after that 6 mile mark, my heart rate dropped to the 120s. And, there was just nothing I could do to get it back up there, which is a pretty classic sign of just low glycogen. So that's kind of where I spent the last 20 miles.
Wow, so that would be a really dark place for you mentally because you want to push and you're just not able to push. You're not absorbing calories. So that's also going to take on from what I've experienced with this podcast so far is if you don't get enough calories, some athletes actually use the mental headspace of if it's a negative thought. Hey, okay, I have a negative thought. That means I'm low on calories. I need to eat some. But, you are kind of going down this rabbit hole of, okay, there's no calories, and now you're having negative thoughts, and now you can't really push that hard. How are you overcoming this?
So I guess I thought back to a guy I do a little bit of training with here in Tucson. Ben Hoffman just raced South Africa, and he had kind of a bad race there. And he was talking after the race, and he's like, well, I could spend this afternoon sitting in my hotel room, or I could, just finish the race and do the best I can with what I've got. And, he had like some pretty serious back issues during that race. And all I had was a little bit of GI distress and some low glycogen. So it's kind of like, if he can gut it out with back issues, I feel like there's no reason why I can't just do what I need to do to get to 20 miles.
Right. So then, as far as this run course goes, now say 20 to 25, you're going back into town, you're ready to get off the trail, and then you're getting off the trail, you see the lake out there to your left, you can see the finish line off in the distance. Is this after self-esteem and mental battle at all?
No. Actually at that point, an age grouper caught up to me, and for me, it's one thing that helps me is just talking to other people and seeing where they're at and trying to not think about myself. So this guy ran up to me, and he was working really hard, and I think he was like winning his age group. I think he was second overall amateur, and so he was like just trying to hold on, and so I chatted with him. He wasn't super chatty because he was deep in the pain cave. But just having people around me like that to see how they're doing and check in with them, so I don't have to check in with myself anymore, is always nice.
Okay. Now, the last 800 yards, you can actually take that left into the finish tube. How was this for you?
I was in town, and it's a beautiful place. And I could see my parents there, and my daughter was there, and it's always a bummer when you don't race to your potential. But it's like I said, it's like that. There's not much else I'd rather be doing on a Sunday. So I got to go ride, run, and swim in a beautiful place, and I just kind of like to jog it in and absorb that feeling of getting to participate in this sport. Whether I hit my goals or not, it's always great to get out there.
Now, when I first came to South, how was this feeling of being able to cross the finish line again?
Like I said, it's bittersweet. But I kind of knew going in that I was playing with fire a bit, racing with a 9-week-old. Unfortunately, I don't think that was really even my issues on race day, which was a different pill to swallow. That it wasn't lack of sleep, that it was kind of these other things that I was dealing with. But the town, the finish line, everyone there was so supportive that it was great to be there and get to experience it in Mont Tremblant.
Nice. So after you cross the finish line, what do you get to do next?
I drank a Sprite and ate a bunch of French fries, and found my way to the massage tent. And then as soon as I got out of there, it was I found my family and my wife and daughter, and then it was time to see what they needed to do, because we all say racing is hard, but I know that spectating is a long day, especially when you have a newborn with you all day. So then it was time to see what was best for them at that point.
Okay. Now, to kind of transition a little bit here, what's something that you learned about yourself that you would like to share with the listeners from this race?
I mean, I learned so much every race. Even though I'm an old man racing at this point, every race is such a big learning experience. And, I think that it's just really important to pay attention to those lessons, like whether you go home and write it down or talk about them with somebody, but, really, really take advantage of the learning that takes place on race day, because no matter how hard you try, you can't emulate that in training. So yeah, just pay attention to what happens in a race and use it to get closer to your potential at the next race.
Okay, so what is it that you learned from this race?
So yeah, I mean, I had those GI issues, which I really need to figure that out, and that's really what I'm working on right now. Is making sure that doesn't happen again. And that was really that was really the main takeaway for me. Working on the mental side of things, so I'm always kind of staying positive and keeping my head in the game is, I think, something that I could have done a little bit better on this race. And I think that's always kind of a work in progress for most people. So just kind of doing what I can to sharpen up a little bit before the next one. Yeah.
So looking back on it, how well prepared for this race do you think you were?
I think I was ready for maybe a 90 to 95% day. And that's kind of what I was shooting for. I knew my training wasn't perfect. So I wasn't like, overly well prepared, but I was prepared enough. I knew I had done the work, that I could execute a solid day, which is what I was trying to do, on race day.
Okay. Now, if you could change anything about this race before it happened, what would you change knowing what you know now?
I think I would have changed up my calories I took on board and brought a few more liquid calories, a few less solid calories. And I think I would have started the bike ride even easier than I did.
Really?
Yeah.
So you think it was time to learn on the bike to start with?
Yeah, I do. So, when you asked me my equipment question, one thing I forgot to mention that I have changed since Texas is I changed power meters and I changed crank length. And the power meter I have now reads lower than my other power meter. So it's kind of been an adjustment for me as far as like figuring out exactly how much lower it reads. And that's always hard to say, okay, like, in IRONMAN Texas, I pushed this many watts and now I'm going to try and push like 15 to 20 watts lower, but it's really probably about the same target. So figuring that out has been a little bit of a challenge. And I think, I was aiming a little bit high on race day. I think I started out closer to like 250, 255. Then I kind of was like looking at my heart rate, looking at the watts, and it was fine in the beginning, but after a while I started to, get a little bit of decoupling. So I was like, okay, I kind of have to reevaluate, aim a little bit lower. I think I should have just started with a little bit lower goal.
Okay. Now, as far as the race director and IRONMAN Corporation, how could they have made your race experience better than what it was?
They could have not had it be a foggy morning.
There were some gas fans and kind of just shoot that fog off, right?
Right, exactly. Honestly, the race director was amazing, and I truly think that if I had called him the night before the race and asked him for a special request, he would have made it happen. So I'd say there's really nothing they could have done. The course was really well marked. The 8 stations were well stocked, so really no complaints about the race course. They did their best.
Wow. So I have to ask, I interviewed a few people that did the 7.3 up there. Did they actually have goalies set up for this course on the bike ride?
They had the hockey nets. I don't remember if there was any actual goalies out there for like the trash stuff. I feel like I remember that. So maybe no goalies, just the hockey nets.
Wow, that's pretty funny. So for first timers that are doing this race next year, from your experience, what advice would you want to give them and pass on for them to have a better race and what they should?
I would say just kind of like I said before is mind the hills on the back half of the race. Don't go up them too fast the first time, and really maybe aim a little bit lower on that first loop than you think you should for power. Because, if you go through the first loop and you're a couple minutes slow, but you feel great, you'll be better for it in the end. I promise you that. So take that first loop easy. You've got those climbs at the end and they'll be there in the second loop. And then same thing on the run, you run up and down the hills a couple of times at the beginning of the race. And then again, towards, every time you're coming into transition there, and just go by effort up those hills. Do not run them too fast. They will slow you down, the second time around.
Wow. So we covered plenty about your race. Do you have anything else to add?
I don't think so. I think, I guess the other thing is I would make sure you bring down a bottle of water, maybe a little bit of extra nutrition down to that swim. It is kind of a walk to the swim start, which they did a good job making sure everyone knew. But just, be mindful of that. So if you want to bring like a throwaway bottle of Gatorade or something like that with you to have before the start, obviously I can't predict fog, so I don't know if they're going to be standing there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes with their wetsuit on. But just being prepared.
So what's next for you?
So I'm kind of reevaluating, talking to my wife a little bit right now. I'm kicking around the idea of doing Chattanooga Ironman, which is September 30th.
Wow, that's like 6 weeks. 5 weeks away?
Yeah, I mean, basically just because I want to test out a different nutrition strategy, and see if I can really kind of solve that problem. I don't pretend to say I'll be 100% ready to go, but again, I think I can be ready for that 95% day, at that point. And, if I can kind of nail my nutrition and just have like a kind of better strategy going forward, it'd be nice to troubleshoot that one.
Okay. Now, why Chattanooga versus Louisville?
Good question.
You have a little more time to prepare for Louisville, right?
That is true. And I've done Louisville quite a few times. So it's definitely something I'm thinking about as well. The honest answer is that the field for Chattanooga so far looks a little bit lighter than the field for Louisville. And my wife will be back to work for Louisville, so she wouldn't be able to go. She might be able to go to Chattanooga because she'll still be on maternity leave. So that'd be kind of a fun last little trip for us to go on.
Now, you've done this sport for many, many years. What do you do with all of your race medals?
I've got a box in the closet.
So do you have a favorite medal that you have all of them?
They all kind of mean something special. There isn't really one medal that kind of stands out. But they're all there in the closet in case I ever want to take a trip down memory lane.
Wow. So, as far as races that are on your bucket list, you've been in this sport for many years. What races are on your bucket list?
This is a conversation I've been having a lot lately because, I'm about to be 37, and so my years of racing professionally are probably, getting a little bit limited. And one race I haven't done is Challenge Roth. So that's a race that I would really like to get to at some point.
So, if athletes want to follow you, how can they follow you?
They can follow me on Instagram at Mr. Jesse V. I'm on Twitter at Jeeves. I'm on Facebook as Jesse Vondracek, Strava, Jesse Vondracek. And then I have a website that is kind of my coaching website, but they can check out stuff about my coaching at topsteptraining.com.
Okay. So, you get that Challenge Roth is on your bucket list. When do you plan on actually going and doing that?
That's a good question. So my wife is also, getting back into running after having our baby. And so she would also like to try and qualify for the Olympic trials and the marathon.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So we need to kind of coordinate our race schedules accordingly, so that, I can make sure that I'm supporting her when she's getting ready for a marathon. And if I'm going to go do a race like Challenge Roth, I want to make sure I'm not, 85, 90%. I really want to be 98, 99%. So trying to balance out our two race schedules. So maybe not this summer, maybe the summer after. We'll see.
Okay. Well, I already know what your definition of a perfect race is, so I'd like to ask you a little something different to here. And that's if you could put together an ideal race course for you to include weather, road conditions, everything. What would you want in a race?
So an ideal race course, like for me to have like my fastest time or me versus competition, I guess, because I feel like.
Thank you. Whatever you want.
All right, I'll kind of think about it as a me versus my competition race. So I would like to have a rough, choppy, non-wetsuit swim. Since I swam in high school and college, I think that my swim basically stays the same no matter the conditions, or at least relatively speaking. So I might be able to get a leg up on people that maybe don't have as long as a swim background. And then the bike, I would want a rolling bike on good pavement with no crazy technical descents because I don't have as the best handling skills in the world. Like, I can ride my bike, but I don't look like a Tour de France rider when I'm descending. But I'd want some rolling hills in there because I am also like I'm a little bit shorter, so if I can get a little bit of climbing in there, that can kind of benefit me over some of the bigger guys. And then I'd love a hilly trail run. Yeah, a hot hilly trail run. I love Wildflower. I think that kind of race. Again, those bigger guys. I think that would kind of give me a little bit of a leg up. And I think hard runs are fun and they're hard to find in this sport, especially for the Ironman distance. So if I could find a race like that, I think that would be my ideal race.
Nice. Well, Jesse, I just want to take a minute and say thank you again for coming on the show, spending some time with me, and allowing me to hear your guest speaker. It's been awesome to have someone on that's such a beautiful running you and your experience at IRONMAN.
Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to interview with me. It was fun. And again, sorry. Hopefully, our guest speaker isn't too loud back there.
It's completely fine. I'm sure I'll miss you and make a better with you.
Thanks.
Hey, you're welcome. You have a good day. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.